Day 631 of the Trump administration. And again tonight, the president was performing in front of an audience at one of his rallies. Again tonight, relying on the talking points and rallying cries that have come out of the ugly Kavanaugh fight and the notion the right is pushing hard, that those on the left are part of an angry mob.
Monday night in the East Room of the White House, we achieved a tremendous victory for our nation. We proudly swore in the newest member of the United States Supreme Court, Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Did he get treated badly and unfairly, or what? From the moment Brett Kavanaugh was announced, an angry Democrat mob was on a mission to resist, obstruct, delay, demolish, and destroy him. Republicans believe in the rule of law, not the rule of the mob. The people of Ohio can save America from radical Democrats.
Good time to remember, and let's not forget, it was a week that started, at least in prime time Monday evening, with the president's apology on behalf of the nation as the family of the newest justice and the 8 other sitting justices looked on.
On behalf of our nation, I want to apologize to Brett and the entire Kavanaugh family for the terrible pain and suffering you have been forced to endure.
Now, 5 days later, and tonight there are new polling numbers showing 41% of respondents say they approve of the new justice's confirmation. That's opposed to 51% who do not. This week also brought in a new test for the Trump administration. Hurricane Michael laid waste to portions of Florida's Gulf Coast. The storm hit the region just hours before the president held his second campaign rally of the week in Pennsylvania. There were questions about the president's decision not to cancel the rally, and now his administration is faced with the task of recovery, which no doubt will be watched closely. Because tonight there are Americans who need food and water on an urgent basis. This is a reminder: federal storm response is neither symbolic nor theoretical. Tensions within the administration also competed for the president's attention. A number of reports indicate Trump is actually shopping for a replacement for his Attorney General Jeff Sessions. He appears, however, to have decided to hang on to his deputy Rod Rosenstein, at least for now.
You know, the rumor is the day after the midterms, you're going to fire him and you're going to fire the Attorney General.
Well, I actually get along well with Rod.
The president also revealed this week he's losing a member of his cabinet when U.S. Ambassador to the UN Nikki Haley confirmed she's leaving in January. She's widely seen as a future Republican presidential candidate, potentially a threat to the current president, something she seems clearly aware of.
For all of you that are going to ask about 2020, no, I'm not running for 2020.
Trump is also under increasing pressure following the disappearance of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi in Turkey this week. Khashoggi, who's been critical of Saudi Arabia's government, vanished after entering the Saudi consulate there. Turkish authorities are convinced he was murdered. Trump has boasted of his ties to Saudi Arabia's king, and he has taken some heat this week for what some saw as a lackluster response, let's say, to this crisis. Today, the president struck a somewhat different tone.
We're going to find out what happened with respect to the terrible situation in Turkey having to do with Saudi Arabia and the reporter. This is a very serious thing, and we're looking at it in a very serious manner.
Amid everything else that was happening, perhaps the most enduring image of the week was the president and Kanye West together in the Oval Office at the Resolute desk.
Let's stop worrying about the future. All we really have is today. We just have today, over and over and over again, the eternal return, the hero's journey. And Trump is on his hero's journey right now. Best believe we are going to make America great.
He can speak for me anytime he wants. He's been a great guy. He's a smart cookie, smart. He gets it.
On that, let's bring in our leadoff panel on a Friday night. Philip Rucker, Pulitzer Prize-winning White House bureau chief for the Washington Post. Jackie Combs, White House editor for the Los Angeles Times. And Cynthia Oxney, a career federal prosecutor, former assistant U.S. attorney, veteran of the Justice Department. And having known her for about 25 years, I'm happy to say she is a newly minted MSNBC legal analyst. Good evening. Welcome to you all. Phil, you get to go first, and that is I'm going to ask you to have, in this news cycle, lean way back, have perspective over 5 whole days. What kind of a week was it for this president and this White House?
Well, Brian, this morning I was talking to one of the president's top advisors at the White House who joked that someone could write an entire book about this week, that there's been so many ups and downs and so much happening, starting with the historic Supreme Court fight that came to an end on Monday. That was a huge victory for the conservative movement, for President Trump. It was something he'd campaigned on, and it's something that Republicans are banking on helping them keep their Senate majority in the midterm elections 3 weeks from now. But really, I mean, there are just so many highs and lows here. What we've seen is the president just becoming so much freer and looser. He's talking to reporters multiple times a day. He's saying whatever's on his mind, the impact be damned. And you saw that extraordinary Oval Office moment with Kanye West, but then you see the serious international crises that he's facing with the disappearance and alleged murder, suspected murder of my colleague, Jamal Khashoggi in Istanbul. The administration, the president, has said he wants to get to the bottom of this, but has not indicated that there's any retaliation in store for Saudi Arabia or any sort of effort to push back. Indeed, the Treasury Secretary, Steven Mnuchin, is planning to attend that investor conference in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, next week.
That so many companies have dropped their participation in. Jackie, let's talk about matters domestic. So a celebratory mood at the White House, bill of grievances before every rally crowd. You had the Kanye moment. And yet this storm rolls through the Florida Panhandle. Something that hasn't been said often, we should go ahead and say, this didn't hit a lot of ritzy areas. These are regular folks. These are a lot of working poor folks and a lot of people for whom this was it. This was their piece of paradise on the Florida Gulf Coast, on some of the prettiest coastline we have in this country. Is this susceptible to blowback? Because we are hearing interviews with people saying, we're going to need food and water, and it's getting desperate.
Well, the president has said that, you know, they'll get everything they need. And this is really Trump country there. And, you know, I think that he's planning to go as soon as possible. But this week was really disconcerting, the extent to which, as Phil was saying, that the president was on such a high, and there were all these moments, his 47-minute interview with Fox and Friends, and the Kanye and Jim Brown luncheon, and 3 rallies. There'll be a 4th one tomorrow in Richmond, Kentucky. He was in Ohio tonight. And at all of these, it's like, you know, there's a sort of almost pro forma, just check the box reference to the hurricane victims, where I think the current toll is 17. I hesitate to give a number because it's rising. And it's really, you know, in some ways I think to myself, it's good so many people don't have power, because they can't see that the president, and the president many of them support, seems to be thinking about everything else. Cynthia, let's start with a poll here, because we so often do. Has the Kavanaugh debate made you more likely to support the Democrats or Republicans? What I'm getting out here is a gender gap among women. Democrats 40%, Republicans 24%. A lot of no response here in this poll. But Cynthia, the question to you, coming from the law as you do, was this party willing to sow the seeds of an increasing gender gap to get the victory on Kavanaugh?
Well, it looks like that, but that's not really my lane. What I can say from a legal point of view, as a woman and as a legal person looking at it, there was a lot at stake here in this Kavanaugh appointment for women. There's not only whether or not women will be heard when there's sexual assault, which apparently for the Republican Party they will not be if it gets in the way of power. And there's also the real threat to women in Roe v. Wade, that Justice Kennedy was the swing vote on the cases that came after Roe v. Wade that have protected a woman's right to privacy, and it does not appear that Justice Kavanaugh will vote the same way. So Roe v. Wade will either be overturned outright, or Roe v. Wade will be so altered and what is acceptable as an undue burden will be so changed that you won't even recognize it as a right to privacy in many states in this country. And women know that. And that's why the Kavanaugh win for the Republicans may not be a long-term win for them, because women are afraid of what the Republicans are giving them.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.